Good evening. This is a continuation of the Wyoming Board of Education May regular meeting. We have been in executive session for the to consider the employment of a public employee. We're now out. Our next agenda item would be recognition of the public. And I believe at this time we do not have any videos or additions to the recognition of the public. So I'm going to go on to special recognition, but Susie, I'm looking to you and to tell me when best to do that.
I will bring in the retirees now.
Great. All right, here they come. Okay, we have retiring. We have Teddy Bolton, Karen Gaske, Ann Keene. There's Ann. Okay, Linda Koziansky, Brian Mayer. Does anybody see Brian Mayer? And Marty Murray and Karen Reiber. Is Brian Mayer in the waiting room? All right, then I'm going to move on. Welcome to those of you who've just joined us. This is the second year we've had to do this by going virtual. Usually you come to the board office and we recognize your service to our district and thank you. So this will have to be this way. This is also the time when the president and the vice president hand you your parting gift, which today Mr. Weber said I should show off mine. So I have the bowl that will come your way. And I thought perhaps during this meeting, I might enjoy the cherries because I'm making a statement here that retirement is just a bowl of cherries. So it's here. I'll be at it. All right. So for my former colleagues and friends, this I want to first of all generally tell you the rules of the road regarding retirement. Number one is be someplace else when school starts, because there is a giant invisible magnet that has been attached to all our school buildings, and it starts blaring early in August and will try to pull you in. For most of you, your life as a child and your life as an adult you've been programmed to start your year at the beginning of the school year. And you're going to have to somehow resist that and plan ahead. So don't be near any Wyoming school building when it gets to be August. Second is of my rules of the road are travel in the fall. And the reason is because you can and you never were able to before. Traveling in the fall is quite fun. It's most enjoyable. Third rule of the road is attempt to get off schedule. This is very, very difficult. You have gotten up at the same time for the last 20-something years. You have gone to the bathroom at the same time each day. You have eaten lunch at the same time each day. So try very hard to break the schedule. Good luck. You won't do it, but try anyway. Also, my next rule is you may have to learn to say no at first when you get retired, because you have a skill set that's incredible. You're organized people. You're good with listening. You're good with children. You're good with bringing people on board. You've done it as your life's work. You've mentored so many people. Your skill set is needed in this world. And so a lot of people are going to come your way and say, hey, will you? So think about that. And the last thing is the Wyoming teachers have lunch, retired teachers have lunch together the Thursday before Thanksgiving. So put it in your schedule. It didn't happen last year because of the virtual problems we were all having, the COVID problems. So if you will send me your regular email address, or if you want to send it to Michael Liao or to the bishop, these are the people who will put together that luncheon. So that's that. All right, now individually, Teddy Bolton. This is in alphabetical order. Teddy Bolton is a longtime Wyoming resident and the mother of 2 graduates. I thought I would start each time with your Wyoming connections. She began with Wyoming City Schools in 1997. She has been a 6th grade teacher, first in the block of math, science, and social studies, and then has taught each one individually. And 10 years ago, when we added the cowboy bell, she was one of the people who premiered it and turned it into what it is today. Teddy is known for her smile, her great sense of humor, and her very keen wit. And I bring that up because she and Ann Keen are friends. So at some point, I'll make another connection at some point with those. My personal favorite Teddy story is because she is so inclusive and brings people in and has made her kids feel so comfortable in their skins, which in the middle school, that's a tough job. One of the things she's done is she's used so many of her personal skills, one of which is sign language. And every year she teaches her kids many different things in sign language. But my particular favorite was they learned the Pledge of Allegiance in sign language, and they would perform it for the rest of the middle school. Just shows you how everybody is included in Teddy Bolton's life. So Teddy, here we go.
Okay.
Am I close?
Yeah.
As long as I didn't say anything obnoxious. All right, Teddy, job well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Karen Gaske. Karen began in 1994. She began in the middle school, which is going to be helpful because I'm trying to get a theme going here. So she began in the middle school. The bulk of her career, however, is in the art department in the high school. I know she's been involved with drawing, with ceramics, with metals, with photography. She's, I guess, hit them all. She's been part of this very incredible tradition we have in Wyoming to educate the whole child. And that you see in the way that we have an outstanding art department in the high school. And it's been a continuous, she's been part of that long line of great teachers that we have had. One of your former students, Karen, by the way, said that you make kids feel confident about their inner artist. That's a pretty cool thought, isn't it? So Karen, job well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I've enjoyed every minute.
Ann Keen. Ann Keen is a longtime Wyoming resident, the mother of 2 graduates, and the friend of Teddy Bolton, which makes me question, is this a Thelma and Louise kind of thing you guys are doing? Is this some plot you've got going here? Ann began in 1993. She, you know that poster, everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten? Well, Ann told you, she taught you. So Ann has always been a kindergarten teacher, first at Hilltop and then at Elm. She has prepared, I tried to do numbers. It's something like hundreds of children, like high hundreds. It's close to 1,000 children began their career with Ann and their learning journey, which has been, I mean, think how important her role has been to get our kids started off in the right way. So I thank you for all you have done. And I want to just say that one of your colleagues said about you, Ann, that not only has she been able to set up so many students on the right road towards education, but she's been incredible in mentoring the new kindergarten teachers, and she has helped them develop their teaching skills and has been a real asset to our district in that sense as well. So thank you, Ann. Job well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Linda Kozianski, that is spelled Koscianski. Whoops, I'd be out. I spelled it because Linda has run our spelling bee for years. And of course, our spelling bees are incredible in the middle school because we get to the end of the book that the Scripps Howard people provide, like in the second round. I mean, our children spell. Linda Kay, as she's affectionately known because of her very close friend and fellow language arts teacher, Linda C, is also a longtime active resident of Wyoming. She's a former Junior Women's Club president, and she's the mother of 2 graduates. She began in 1998 with our district. She started as a part-time educational aide, and I think that was probably because your kids were small and you were kind of keeping one one foot in schools and one foot in the community. However, in 2001, 20 years ago, she became a grade 8 English language arts teacher, particularly well known for the research paper. I'm sorry, I can't even say that with a straight face. We partnered on research papers. That's right.
We remember that well together.
Yes. Okay, one of your colleagues said about you, Linda, is that you express the right balance of accountability and compassion for 8th graders. And teaching 8th grade is not an easy task. So thank you for all you've done. Besides her devotion to the language arts program, she's also helped run and begin the middle school Girls on the Run program that has such value for us. So Linda, thank you. Job well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you to all. It was wonderful.
Brian Mayer is next in the alphabet. He is the father of a Wyoming graduate. He's been with us since 1990 in the 5th grade. He has a great gift for listening to children, especially those kids who are kind of troubled and need a good listener. And it's one of the positives that we could say about Brian. Last is Marty Murray on my, oh no, not last on my page, but I got 2 more pages. Marty Murray is a longtime Wyoming resident, wife, parent, grandparent of many Murray family members who have been involved in our schools in many different ways. She started in the middle school in 2003. She's been a middle school educational aide. She is one of those valued people you love having in your classroom with you and the work she does. She always has, she's just always got a smile on her face. She also worked with the after school homework program, which I just think is one of the most valuable things we do. And I love the way she just sat them down and got them to do their homework. So great things. She's a dynamo. She, you know, grass does not grow under her feet. She keeps moving. Act 1, Marty, was in Lima. Act 2 was when you came to Wyoming to be near your children. I cannot wait for Act 3, because in Act 3, we're turning loose 2 Murrays, Marty and her husband, Mike, and it's gonna be great, I'm thinking. So
Act 3 is coming.
we wish you well, job well done. Thank you for your service. Now, Karen Reiber. Karen Reiber is also a Wyoming resident. She began with us in 2010. She started in the middle school, joined as an educational aide, then was added to the certified staff in 2011. She was, at that point, the middle school media specialist. She oversaw the renovation of the middle school, which also included the library. She managed to run a viable library program for 1.5 years while living in a trailer. And then she moved to this last year and opened up the Dan Jones Research Center. So by my count, that's 4 times she's taken down a library, boxed it up, reset it, and then brought it back to life, which that's just phenomenal. That's just unbelievable. She has always added so much to the program, both in her research and the technology that she brings to the kids. And she has done some great things. She's helped children design. She's helped children create. She's taught children how to communicate. And then there's that whole other wonderful thing about her, in that anytime you get an email from her, at the bottom of the email, it tells you what she's been reading and what's coming up next in her life. And the great books she brings for the kids in the middle school, and I'm sure this year in the high school as well. So many thanks to you for a job quite well done, and thank you for your service.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So those are our retirees. All right. We also have an outgoing community leader position, our PSA. We like to recognize our major connections, the PSA, the School Foundation, the Boosters, the Wyoming School Music Association, especially when they change over leadership, and that's going to happen this year. And Heather, I think you were going to, I've lost where you are, Heather, but I think you were going to say something here.
Hi, Raquel.
Hi.
Hey, we just want to say thank you for leading the PSA in quite a year that was not expected when you put that on. So to not have May Faith in a pandemic and to be such a lovely person through it all and to still set up something wonderful for the kids on June 5th and to take it as much as in stride as you can. We thank you.
Lady Bevington would like to be welcome. No, if I'm being honest, this year was kind of rough, but gratefully I had Corey Best in front of me who led the way, showed me everything I needed to know. And it's been a great honor to do this. I've loved every step of it. I didn't like having to cancel a lot of stuff, and hopefully next year, Liz McLean, who's going to rock it, will do great and not have to cancel anything. And I'll be there for her. It's just been a wonderful time. I've enjoyed everything. And if I could actually get myself back into president next year, I would love to do it. I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do that. So it's just an FYI.
Okay.
It's been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any of the other retirees want to add in? I went through the list quickly, and I'm glad to have you make a conversation. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for everything. I mean, from the day I was hired on, you know, I'm looking around. I've had almost every one of your kids. If you're a Wyoming resident, I really think I have. And yep. I saw your son today and your daughter running. So it's just been fabulous. I mean, honestly, you guys are my family. You know, my girls are off and running, and it's just me and you supported me through absolutely everything. And I really appreciate it. It's a great family and a community to be part of. I highly recommend it to everybody. So yeah, thanks.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank everybody in the foundation as well, from funding all my crazy ideas that I've had over the years and tech club stuff. And the parents have always been great and supportive, and the kids are awesome. And I think, you know, I'm going to miss them most of all. That'll be the most difficult thing, is not being around them every day. So thank you again for this great opportunity to be part of Wyoming.
Great. Thank
I
you.
just want to reiterate that also. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for the support, for all the encouragement you've given me over the years. I've had a wonderful career at Wyoming, and thank you very much. Sorry to leave.
All right.
It has been a lovely ride. Thank you all very much.
Terrific. Thank you.
And
All right,
I'd
thanks for
like
the
to
help.
just, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Add some thanks, and particularly to you, Jeannie, too, because you really were there when I started that 8th grade teaching, and it was great to have your knowledge and support, and that was wonderful. And yes, I am going to take your advice and be off on many travels, particularly to see the grandkids, 2 of them now.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. Don't forget
Thank
our
you.
Hawaii.
I can't imagine a better job. It's been fabulous.
Terrific.
Jeannie, I just wanted to go ahead, Teddy.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to tell Jeannie, I appreciate so much the way you genuinely and authentically and with such joy celebrate the retirees from our district. I can tell you had as much fun as possible in preparing for it and sharing the things that our leaders have brought to us. And it just brought me a great joy to hear what you described about our friends who are retiring. And thank you, Marty, for the help in Lowe's last Saturday. Really appreciate that.
Well, it's great. It's, as they all said, it's a wonderful job. They've done a great job at it, and we're all lucky to have had them as our friends. All right. Well, thank you.
Can I just jump in with one time? I can't not speak to these individuals, and just to look at the screen and to think about the word impact, and to think about how we talk about the unique ways that people do that through their different roles. What you see here on the screen are people who have done that through such an incredible year in their year of retirement up to the very end, and are still going so strong, supporting kids through so many different things. I mean, truly the model for everyone else. And so I cannot thank you enough. I've got chills just thinking about the ways that you've impacted one another, your colleagues, the kids and families. I just appreciate everyone across this entire school community appreciates you so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm showing up on that lunch with volunteer applications too. So it's on my calendar. The lunch before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, you'll have to retire first, and we're not going to let you do that. So
I can't. I thought I could visit maybe.
Forget it. You'll have to wait. Next, I think we're going to have a CAC presentation. So I'll turn that over to Heather and Ilya. And I guess we're going to bring more people in.
Hey, everybody.
Susie, is Karen in the waiting room? No? Okay.
Ilya, did you want to go? I don't want to trip on it in Zoom. Okay, CAC part 2, second presentation. We're excited to have you. It was the school financial planning. So I had the opportunity to hear this the other day, which is great. So we're looking forward to you presenting to everyone, and I'll let you take over.
Thanks, Heather. I think I'm going to start. Susie, am I able to share my screen? You're on mute, but I think you said you're working on it.
Give it a try and let's see. Is it not working for you?
Oh, I hadn't tried it yet. I wanted to just check with you first. I'm actually I have so many things open on my screen that I'm not sure which one is it. So let's hold on for 1 second here. What do you see?
I see your screen, or I see a black that you started. Now I see your wallpaper with
Okay. How about that?
All your emails.
Yeah, that's glorious, isn't it?
We see it now.
Okay, so I just want to, oops, let's see, I don't want to do that. I want to present. So remind me where the present is. You've got, oh, present, sorry. Right next to it, thank you. All right, do you all see the cover page there? Great, thank you. All right, so welcome to the CAC School Financial Planning presentation. We had the honor of having community members Cindy Peebles, Karen Klaus, Kathy McCauley, Tyler Stein, who is an intervention specialist at the middle school, and Marta Stewart, who teaches 3rd grade at Vermont as part of our planning team. We sought out to answer these 3 questions. What are the critical factors of school financial planning in Wyoming? What are the key points of understanding and key communication points for Wyoming's financial stability? And how can our school community better understand and support our efforts towards financial stewardship? These questions really came from a continued discussion on financial planning as we move from our last school levy that we passed in 2017 for the next one, which is coming within the next year or 2. So when we were thinking about planning for future levies, we kept coming back to the best ways to answer these 3 questions. And we know that CAC is such an outstanding resource for the board that we really thought asking these questions of a CAC committee would be a great way to start to do some of that planning. This is very different than other CAC studies like school start times, the strategic planning process, school community partnerships. All of those were really focused on external research. In fact, last year, I think it was the school community partnerships, they did some international research and brought back some really great feedback to the board. So this one is very, very different. It was much more about learning and understanding the intricacies of Wyoming school finance, and then working through that to come up with the best ways to answer these questions. So our committee members really had to sit through some tough financial conversations and lots of financial detail. And so especially to my board finance committee friends, you all know what that's like because we do that on a regular basis. But really appreciate the opportunity to work with the committee members and get their feedback. Susie, I see something in the chat. You'll just let me know if I need to address some of that. Thank you. So this is all about Wyoming information. And while we will review some information about other districts, also just want to make sure to point out that as we begin the strategic planning process, a lot of this work will sort of run parallel to that work moving forward. So it's important to kind of think about that as we go through this a little bit, that a lot of that work will end up being married to each other moving forward. Okay, so let's get started. When we think about financial planning, what was our methodology and research as we went into this work? We obviously started with taking a deep dive into Wyoming financial data, and we went really deep. A couple hours worth of meetings on different revenue and expenditure topics, because we really felt strongly about learning, going deep into the learning to make sure we discovered those key points. We also took the time to compare some of that data with local and/or similar districts, and we'll talk about sort of what we learned from that exercise. Finally, we explored 2 case studies of local high-achieving districts who had recently been on the ballot. And we did that because we know that at some point we want the answers to these questions, because every school district in Ohio has to run an operating levy at some point. So we understood the financial components of Wyoming, looked at some comparative data, and then put that learning into play as we did some analysis of local high-achieving districts who were recent. And we felt like that was important to help sort of check our learning and see if, one, we missed something. So if we learned all of this information about school financial planning and we either saw or didn't see some of that data in other school district levy planning, then that caused us to kind of step back and say, oh, did we miss something? Or do we need to learn more about another topic? Or how did they talk about that? And would that be helpful? And so that was an exercise that we finished with. So does somebody have a question? Okay, sorry, thank you. So when we think about reviewing Wyoming financial data in depth to discover the key points, we're not going to hit all of the highlights of this. It'll be in the overall report for the board, but so these are just sort of real top level information that we learned. When we think about where we started and what we tried to capture, we really looked at revenue and expenditure patterns over 20 years. We tried to understand the performance of our major revenue components. We're funded just shy 40% of property taxes and about 30% in income tax. So really driven by local funding in Wyoming. And again, that was sort of that first question. What is special about Wyoming? So how is that different than other districts that we analyzed? And so for us, it's all about that local contribution, the local commitment to our funding structure. And what's different about that compared to other districts is our state funding component. Our money that comes from the state is significantly less than some of our local neighbors and some other districts across the state. And so once we understood that we are really locally funded, that the influence of local funding and property tax and income tax, we tried to understand the economic and political factors that impact that revenue performance. And so for property taxes, the only thing that can influence the property tax line is a property tax levy. So we took a 20-year look back and understood and analyzed the different tax levies that were passed. So you can see them there on the screen, on the graph on the left. And those are all 3 of our major revenue sources. And so green is property tax. And so you can see that the only time that green line takes a different shape is when there's a new levy. Okay, so 2002 was a levy, 2005 was a levy, and most recently 2017. Absent additional property tax levies, that line is relatively flat. And so then we were understanding what happened to our next most material revenue source, which was income tax. And that is the chart on the right. And that's the one where we really tried to understand the impact of economic and political factors. And so you can see the volatility in that curve. And so we, again, just built some understanding about how things all the way back to 2001, how the recession and 9/11 impacted a decline in one of our revenue sources, how the recession of 08 and 09, how you see a deep decline there, how you see some tax law changes, some federal tax law changes impacting the shape of that curve. And of course, our dear friend COVID happening in March, beginning in March of 2020, you can see the impact of that revenue line item. So, we made sure as we studied both our most material revenue sources and then understanding how those revenue components perform and what triggers their performance. Once we sort of got a really great handle on revenue, we moved to expenditures and spent a lot of time understanding that salaries and benefits drive school district expenditures, not just in Wyoming, but consistently across public schools in Ohio. And the average is anywhere between 80 to 85%. We're right along that benchmark. And that is the case because we pay staff members, teachers, instructional aides, we pay those folks to serve our kids. And so when you understand that 80% of your budget is tied to your main purpose, your core work, and you start to think through then what that looks like if your community has an expectation about reducing expenditures, talk through a discussion about how you're really limited in doing that. That if you move forward with reducing expenditures, you're starting to hit your core business really, really quick. We aren't a production company that buys raw materials and then transform them into something that we sell. Our biggest asset are our staff members, and we feel strongly about our commitment towards the staff members that we hire and the things that they do to meet the needs of our kids. And so 80% of our budget in salaries and benefits working towards all of that great, incredible service to our students. So along the way, we had some great questions from our committee members. And one of the things that I appreciated the most about this committee is that they were super honest in their questions. And we had a great dialogue about administrative expenses. And I think that that's always a question that comes up when school districts are talking about their expenditures, because people want to know and want to understand administrative cost and is it too high? Is it too low? Like, what does it look like? How can we understand it? And so this was an area where we did do some benchmarking and look at some of our comparative data compared to districts who are like us across the state. And so you can see that, and we do that, use this term per pupil expenditure. And so that's something that the state calculates. And so it's an easy way for us to measure where we stand on some of these categories. And so if you look at districts who are like us across the state, some in this area, some in different parts of the state, but it's districts who are our similar size, similar demographic in terms of median income, those sorts of measures. And so the average was about $2,200 per student. We're a little bit less than that. So kind of right in the middle of the road. So just again, one measure to help folks understand when they ask questions about administrative costs, where might we land in some of that benchmarking. Another great question, we spent lots of time, and this is where our teachers who were part of the committee were great resources, talking about special education costs. And this is just one of the data points that we analyzed as part of our work. This data goes back to 2006, and the question that was generated, and I don't know if Karen Klaus has joined us yet, but Karen had some great questions about special ed. And so as you kind of start to see when we get to our recommendations, one of the things that we want to make sure is captured, the way that we explain some of our expenditure data helps explain the story of how great in service to our kids we are. But this question came about, have we increased or decreased expenditures related to special education? And so again, we just took this look back, and this is a chart that graphs the dollars per student spent on special education, and also the percent of our operating expenditures. So a fairly reasonable trend line in terms of percent of operating expenses and actual dollars per student. There was a a question or an understanding from, perhaps some members of the community that made it to one of our committee members that we had significantly reduced special education expenditures. And that is absolutely not the case. And so just being able to create a format or give people an avenue to ask that question and share the data in a good dialogue way is one of the things that came out of this committee, is making sure that that opportunity exists for our families, and just understanding the data and having honest conversation about it. Okay, so we took, you got a little hint at some of the comparative data, but we did the deep dive, and then we took a very pointed approach at comparing some other figures to either local or similar districts, Hamilton County, ODE, and local high performing. And I go back to this expenditure per pupil data. And so this is all of Hamilton County. And so the average in Hamilton County is about just shy of $13,000 per student. We're a little bit higher than that, but really about the middle of the road when it comes to expenditure per pupil in Hamilton County. I think what we found when we talked about this data is that it creates a lot more questions than it does maybe helps people understand. I think inadvertently people's eye is immediately drawn to the top of this category, and folks want to know why that number is so high. And so one of the things that we learned is some of this data that we have always thought was super meaningful and helpful for folks to understand our stewardship maybe isn't as meaningful as we think it is. Because the feedback from the committee is, well, that's fine, but sometimes that makes me want to know more about some of these other districts, which really isn't necessarily what our concern. We're focused on serving the needs of Wyoming students in the very best way possible. Again, looking at this, when we think about our ODE similar districts, we are a little bit below the average here. But again, when we did this comparison, folks are immediately drawn and they want to know what's happening up in Orange City. Like they don't necessarily find value in Wyoming being less than the average. They immediately want to know more about what's happening in Orange City and why is their number so high, which again, can't be our concern because we're focused on meeting the needs of the kids in Wyoming. So finally, we took all of our learning and we explored 2 case studies. Indian Hill was just recently on the ballot for a combination bond operating levy just in May. They passed. So we certainly wanted to look at some successful campaigns because we wanted to look at data that, where the community was successful. And same with Mason. So local high achieving districts who were recently on the ballot. And, for the board members, we've included the links there. I'm not going to go to them tonight as part of the presentation, but if you're interested in seeing some of their dialogue, it's there for you. It's there for you to look at. We spent a whole meeting, so a whole evening, just sort of, checking our own understanding and having good conversation about the things that we understood about Wyoming finances and how they tried to convey some of that information. Some of the benchmarking information, some of the cost information about a levy, some of the value information about the value of public education in those respective districts. So that was super interesting to see, both of their very comprehensive and well done campaign information. So take us back to our big 3 questions. What are the critical factors of school financial planning in Wyoming, key points of understanding, and how can our school community better understand and support our efforts towards financial stability? Well, here are our findings. Local funding is key. We're about 73% total locally funded through property taxes and income tax. So state funding doesn't really matter to us. I mean, it's such a small portion of what we do. And for those of you that don't get enough of this and stick around to the 5-year forecast presentation next, we'll talk about the shift of what's happening at the state level in terms of a new state formula, but it doesn't matter to us as much as it matters to other school districts, both in our region and across the state, because we are 73% locally funded. We spent a lot of time looking at detailed expenditure data, and the feedback is that it's confusing and difficult to understand, but it can help address specific concerns. So, creating a space where people can come and ask specific questions about special education, for example. And so being able to have those moments where people can find an answer about something with factual data and answer those is, people find much more of a benefit to that than just, sort of this barrage of sort of detailed expenditure data. Comparative analysis should be used on a pretty limited basis, because what we're doing in Wyoming is special to the people in Wyoming, and it doesn't always matter what's happening in different parts of Hamilton County or across the state. Education, this is great feedback. Education is a personal experience, and the experience that Wyoming families are looking for is unique. And that sort of ties back to that comparative analysis. It doesn't really matter, what the expenditures look like in some of those other places, because we just want to have confidence in the expenditures and the spending that's going on here, and we're meeting the needs of our kids. And so it's about that personal experience. Achievement matters, and it's linked to the willingness to contribute financially, and rankings are important. That feedback came through from the folks on our committee. The student experience is important. Are students being offered engaging opportunities, and how are kids being treated? So again, it goes back to that unique personal experience, and how do families feel about the way their kids are being served. That being said, the confidence in our teaching staff is high. We've seen that come through in quite a bit of the survey data that came through, even going back to the superintendent search. People believe in our teaching staff. They believe in what our teaching staff are doing with our kids. Engagement and communication is critical. I was surprised about some of the things that I thought are widely known in terms of our school funding that the folks on our committee didn't really have any perspective of. So every time that I think I've said something 500 times, I probably need to say it 500 more. So that was good feedback for us as a district, just to make sure that we're making sure that we're sending out our message in a broad way so that folks have access to it and it's understandable. And that all of these factors combined drive confidence in Wyoming finances, not necessarily just kind of that hardcore specific financial data. So moving forward, what would we recommend to the board? That continued communication of achievement rankings and report card data, those value indicators. Our community makes an investment in our public schools. And so communication of their return on investment in terms of achievement rankings and report card, that has value. And so we need to continue to keep doing it. But more importantly, and this is probably the biggest piece of feedback that I could convey to the board, that our committee felt strongly about parent, family, taxpayer, teacher, and student testimony, and using that testimony as a way to share our expenditure data or our financial situation or any part of our story. That the testimony of Wyoming or the Wyoming school community has incredible value, and so that we should be doing more of that. Making sure that we have straightforward, explicit financial information when communicating financial planning. A great example, we talked a lot about that we have some debt that we're getting ready to pay off. So our high school debt, our high school bond millage is coming to the end. Just like you're getting ready to pay off your mortgage, our high school debt is getting paid off. And so that millage will go away. It will come off of our taxpayers' obligation. And so if we're going to run a new levy in the future, making sure our constituents understand how that math works and just being really straightforward and explicit about it. Great feedback from the committee about that. Tied to that testimony piece is sharing expenditure data in a way that demonstrates the Wyoming opportunity and how the investment that our community makes impacts the experience of our kids, of our families. Continuing to understand our community as it relates to voter demographics. Some folks on the committee asked me some things that I didn't have the answer to. And so good work for us moving forward, just knowing and understanding the demographics of our community. As I sort of started in the beginning, the upcoming strategic plan work should include a financial stability component. So while our little team had great dialogue and incredible understanding, this has to go to a broader community. And so running this work parallel with the strategic plan should help to solidify some of these recommendations. And continuing to offer opportunities for feedback. probably in the form of surveys, but perhaps even in person for students, families, and alumni, so that we can continue to gauge how they feel about some of this information, and continuing to communicate it. Again, both the value indicators and all of these different ways of testimony, and then having some surveys that maybe follow some of that up. So while the recommendations aren't necessarily all the little nuggets of financial data, really happy to see some of this take shape in a way that I do think is going to help our school community understand the broader picture of Wyoming school finances. There is some detailed appendices, but I'll go back to the recommendations and then perhaps let any of my committee members chime in, or maybe have you all ask some questions.
I would be interested in hearing from some of the committee members. Just, did they learn something new about school finances? Anything in particular that like really jumped out at them? I mean, this presentation is fantastic, just to, know what people are asking, and to be able to communicate that in terms of administrative costs, special ed costs. These are all things that come up when we're out and about in the community, or campaigning, when we ran for the board, and those sorts of things. So to have this avenue and this kind of work done is just really appreciated. But I would be interested in knowing what the other people in the committee, if there was anything in particular that stood out.
It's all right. I speak for a quick moment. I would like to follow up with what Rhonda said. She, first and foremost, has done a phenomenal job presenting this information. But as you'll see at the top in our recommendations and conclusions, that communication of achievement, I think, also has to be said for the phenomenal job she consistently does with all of our school districts' finances. And so all of those things that we've learned, and I learned a lot. I know our fellow committee members did the same too. But whether we're talking about revenues or expenditures and asking those questions about the different costs that we have, that we hear in the community too, I think it's always important to note too, I know all the board members know for sure, he has done a phenomenal job of making sure that everything we do in regards to any of our school finances is done soundly and is done ethically and appropriately. And so I think that's a big part to communicate, part of that achievement too. And I know she's very modest in those great remarks, but that's something that we also all learned about too in this process, to say, wow, you've done a great work on this so far. But to touch on what she said too, the big conversation that came up at the end of every meeting we had as a CAC was that testimony. We want to hear from the community, and we all are part of the Wyoming, everyone who's part of the Wyoming community wants to see excellence, wants to have the great experience within their education system. And so I think no matter who you are, when we reevaluate at the end and really look into this a little bit more, we really want to hear from everybody and have those testimonies, because moving forward, that really leads and encourages the decisions that are made financially moving forward. So I think she did a phenomenal job of sharing a lot of information with us in the committee as we were learning and working through the process, and just asking a lot of different questions that we threw at her. But I also want to make sure that we realize too that communication of the achievement starts right there too in the board office, and she's there making sure that we're doing everything we can as a school district to be successful financially as well. So I just want to give her those accolades as well, because I know she's very modest in that part too, but I think that speaks true to the Wyoming opportunity and the Wyoming experience.
Kara, this is Tyler Stein's middle school teacher. To kind of echo that, one of the recommendations we did have was putting Rhonda's face on some sort of flyer or poster. She did not want that, so we decided to leave that off the recommendations page. I think what I got out of our research, and it was kind of a unique research opportunity, was just how unique Wyoming is in terms of its finances and how we generate revenue and how we spend our money too. So while looking at that normative data and looking at some of those other comparisons can be helpful, I think at the end of the day, Wyoming is very special and unique in both what we do and how we're funded. And I think Rhonda echoed that kind of throughout the presentation. So for me, that was a large takeaway, just how unique we are. And then in that communication, of these recommendations, I think that also is in there too, just how different we are. And again, why we can look to others, really, we need to take a look at ourselves and go from there.
Kathy, did we miss anything?
I don't think you really missed anything. I thought you did an excellent job, and there's a lot of data to sort of get your arms around. I guess I would just say that coupled with the testimonials, which I think are critical, fortunately or unfortunately, communication of achievement in rankings is more quantitative, and I think that plays probably as important of a role, if not more, because it is quantitative. So I think coupling those two together probably has the biggest impact. I think when I just talk with people in the community, no one questions that Wyoming uses its money wisely. But a lot of people, I think, came here because of rankings, because of small community, because of the personal attention. So I think when we communicate about an upcoming levy, those two items should probably go hand in hand.
True. Good.
Rhonda, one of the things that you all talked about, I think, when we had the discussion with the CAC was some of the things that make Wyoming unique. Tyler mentioned it a minute ago, and you talked about it earlier. And maybe it's some more things in this qualitative space to the point that was just made about how much focus we have on the quantitative. But what are some of those things you compare even versus like districts that make Wyoming either the expectations or the experience unique versus those others that others might try to compare us against?
Well, I can talk about it from the funding side about what makes us unique. Certainly that the strength of our local contribution is very unique. In most districts across the state, there's a more equitable split between state funding and local funding. Nobody's going to be quite at 50-50, but it's maybe more 60-40, 40-60. Across the state. There are other people who are like us that have significant local contribution. But, for us, it's that balance of both the property tax and the income tax and the strength then of the local contribution when you add those two together. So, because of that, I think people feel very vested. They feel very vested because of their contribution. And so from the financial side, that's my uniqueness. I think what was great about our committee is they were able to share what felt unique on the experience side. And it was all of those things. It was the achievements and the rankings and the report card data. And it was that Wyoming experience that people have this incredible confidence in the teaching staff and what they're doing and how they're serving kids, and that the kids are cared for, loved, engaged. It was sort of all of those things. All of that was feedback from the folks on our committee. And so it's sort of this balance of how do we convey that we're meeting the expectation, right? So the achievement, the rankings, the report card data, but also all of these other ways that students are supported. And I think that's the balance of the data with the testimony, because not every student hits some of those achievement rankings things, but they have incredible other needs and we're meeting them. And so helping our entire school community understand that through a testimony, I feel like is what felt right for our committee. And, that's why we included it on our recommendation. Does that make sense, Ilya?
Yeah, and I don't know if we have quantitative data about the confidence that the community has in the teachers, but if we could generate some of that through surveys, then the testimonials support that quantitative data about how much people value what teachers are doing for their kids.
actually, interestingly, I got a parent feedback survey today asking those very questions from the high school. And I don't know, I must have gotten this in the past, but it felt new to me. I'm not sure why. Maybe there's just a lot going on, but
Yeah. And I can jump in on that too. Yes, we began utilizing the survey that was sent today last year. As we finished the year last year, even though it was in a pandemic, felt the importance of connecting with people to understand their experience. That's what I love so much about this study, is it's so reliant on the connection between the school district and the community, and what are the experiences that our students are having, our parents are having, and all community members are having. So that went out to every school today, and it helps us to gauge the experiences that people are having over time. And so it's powerful in and of any individual year, but over time, we're really looking to see how those trends will grow. And also to this group, kudos to you all for connecting the importance of being engaged in communication and understanding experience, especially in light of the strategic planning process, because that alignment is critical as we think about, what things do we do well, what things can we improve upon, and how can we best utilize our resources in the district to be unique and to make sure that we're tapping into the things that matter most. And that's what's so great. This team is identifying the things that matter most to people, which is very, very helpful.
And I think what's helpful too is thank you for all the work you did, number one. And then, like we said, it was a different assignment, I guess, and there's positives and negatives for that, right? In terms of less research and maybe engagement in a certain way for you all, but also like a course on finances from Rhonda. But I do think at the same time to hear the questions that you all come up with, like Rhonda said, she knows it. And then being on the board, I'm not on the finance committee, but we hear enough that sometimes you start to learn it and then you don't realize that maybe you're not being succinct enough or clear enough. So it's helpful to hear from different community members and the questions that you brought up of how we can be presenting in a meaningful way. So it sounds like you had so much behind the scenes stuff, and thank you for bearing with like trying a new direction, I guess, with a committee. It was helpful to hear it twice. It was nice to be a part of this committee for the first time too. So thank you for all that insight that you brought in a different way. So I think it's another thing of feedback from you all that would be helpful for CAC is that of something of value to take, one presentation one way and different ways to be looking at how to use the CAC and the work that you all do with all that time. So, thank you.
Well, I think that is it, unless there are other questions. Again, thanks to my team. They endured. You guys know I can be a lot when I start talking about the nuggets of school finance, and so these poor folks endured hours and hours and hours and hours. So they get a round of applause because they were excellent. They were excellent participants. So it was great.
I did love that because Rhonda, with every meeting, you're like, we're going to need a little bit more time. Well, we're like, oh no, it's like it's a lot of information. You're like, all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love how this dovetails with the work of the strategic planning committee, because it's like you mentioned earlier, we're going to need to marry several things as we think about approaching the community. And so I just find it extremely helpful. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you. It all falls together. All right, next on our list is the another presentation, the updated 5-year forecast.
I almost clicked leave because I thought I was done, but I guess I'm not. All right, so Susie, I'm going to share my screen again, if that's okay. And you all can see, I hate when I try to share and then I lose my, there we go. You all see that?
Yep.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
All right. So this is the time where we update the 5-year forecast. We do this twice a year, once in November and once in May. It's my general, it's not quite a disclaimer. It's sort of just the spiel about what is the 5-year forecast. 3 years of history, 5 years of projections, the current fiscal year, and the next 4. This is a general fund only report. So this is the general operating fund of the district, but not all of our financial activity. It doesn't include our federal funds, doesn't include all the student activities like athletics or student council. So general fund only. We're forecasting a reliable trend, of course. The numbers on this page, 100%, all of them wrong, because it is just that, a forecast. It is the trend that we're paying attention to. Certainly more difficult in a pandemic, getting a little better at it now as we're coming to the end, but still some uncertainty, and we'll talk about those points of uncertainty. In the environment of continued uncertainty, though, we are modeling based on all of the data that we have available to us sitting here today. So we start with revenue, and some of this is going to be a little bit of a repeat from the previous presentation, but we just learned that our most material revenue source is real estate taxes. And so if we look at what our real estate taxes have done, we know that we passed an 8 mil operating levy in May of 2017. So we can see the performance of this line item. And what we learned in CAC is the only time that line item is changes or increases is when you have an operating levy. And so I've given you, at the board level, you get even a little more detail, and we get pretty down in the weeds than more so even than we did some points of CAC. But that we just had a reappraisal in Hamilton County. And so when the valuation goes up, the effective millage rate goes down so that the collected revenue stays the same. So while our residents in Wyoming had changes in their values, the effective millage rate did go down as a whole. So if your property taxes went up, that means somebody else's went down. And we did that case study both in CAC, so folks can understand it. And we've also done it in finance committee. So if anybody has any questions about it that's listening, I'd be happy to talk people through that, because we've analyzed that at length. So property taxes, about 39% of our total revenue, and projected to stay flatlined until it's time to run a new levy. Moving on to income tax, our second most material revenue source. This one is revised from when we adopted the 5-year forecast in November. So income tax is about 29% of our total revenue. The community has passed 2 income taxes, one in 1989, one in 1994. So we're at a total of 1.25%. And over the past 15 or 20 years, we've had about average 2% annual growth. And so that had what was in our forecast. But then when COVID hit, we actually forecasted a 5% decline, because when COVID actually hit and it was impacting the economy in such a dramatic way right out of the gate, we really didn't have any data that enabled us to do any sort of historical trend on what does income tax collection do in a community during a pandemic. We didn't know. We just know that the economy took a dive, unemployment soared, and so we forecasted a reduction in our income tax collection, and we forecasted a 5%, again, just not knowing where we were going to be, because this is a first for everybody. Now that we've had the whole full year of collection, we actually came in at about a 1% decline, 0.74%. So that has modified our projection moving forward. We had 2 years of a 5% decline because of the way that income tax cycles through the collection. I think most folks are aware that you pay your income taxes in April, or this year, May, because of the extension, and that payment reflects the prior year income. And so we won't see that actual payment in its full reflection of 2020 pandemic income until July. So that causes 2 fiscal years for us, which is why we had 2 years of forecasted reductions. But given that we just saw about a less than 1% decline in our current year collection, we modified next year's decline to 3%, and then we show it rebounding. So we will continue to monitor this line item very carefully. Every time we get a payment, we get quarterly payments, We analyze them immediately during finance committee and share that information with the board and discuss whether or not we should be in a position to revise our projections. So we're doing that on a quarterly basis and continuing to analyze our income tax collection by their components, estimated payments, payments with returns, and withholding. State funding, again, we learned in CAC that this is our least material revenue source, but we certainly need to talk about it, given what's going on in Columbus with the state biennium budget. Our prior forecast, the past couple actually, had flatlined base state funding while the state had worked on a new formula. I feel like I've been saying that literally my entire career. The state's working on a new formula, and this year they are indeed, again, working on a new formula. That is continuing its life in the legislature, but in the midst of all of that work, again, a pandemic hit. And when we were talking this time last year, the state had just reduced state funding for all public schools across Ohio, again, given that the state itself was feeling the economic pressures of the pandemic. And so we experienced a $409,000 reduction in May. That reduction was also in place for this year. It was a 2-year reduction, but the Ohio economy rebounded a little faster than they initially thought. And so about $200,000 of that was restored for this current year. We have also flatlined our forecast moving forward based on the current legislative modeling. Wyoming is not a winner in any version of the school funding formula that we're currently seeing. They're targeting a lot of money towards poverty. We have a very stable enrollment, so we're not seeing any overall enrollment growth. We are seeing pockets of enrollment shift, but overall staying at about 2,000 kids, which is where we've been, give or take, consistently over the past 10 or 15 years. So I'm projecting the modeling here is for us to continue to be flatlined, and we may have to advocate hard for that in future biennium budgets. Those are the highlights of revenue. Moving towards the expenditures, we talked about this again in CAC, that 80% of our budget is salaries and benefits, modeling moderate growth in both of these line items. On the benefit side, happy to report that we continue to have great experience with our healthcare consortium. Healthcare costs are a big issue for lots of private companies. We participate in a consortium with, I think, 14 or 15 districts across Hamilton County, and have been able to, through the power of that consortium, negotiate really good renewal rates on our health insurance. So that could have been a cost that was really at risk for us, but had some good results there over the past couple of years. So that's impacted our forecast. Purchase services, about 13% of our budget. These are items that we outsource, that some districts actually hire those folks in-house. So transportation, contracted maintenance or custodial staff, some technology services, our subs, all of those we outsource. So those show up in the purchase services line item, in addition to items like things that you think about, fixed costs that you think about in your own home. So utilities and insurance. Also in this line item are special education services that we procure, for example, from the ESC. Some of those items are on the board agenda for your consideration tonight for next year. And so this category, again, about 13% of our overall budget, and projecting some moderate growth just based on inflationary increases. So that leaves materials and supplies and capital outlay, which total is about 3%. And that's really sort of the stuff that our teachers use to serve our kids. So this is textbooks, all the instructional materials, technology purchases, which includes devices and infrastructure. Moving towards some alignment in our planning of this, and really excited about Tim and Ashley's work on textbook planning and technology planning. It's really helped shape our 5-year forecast in a really beneficial, thoughtful, intentional way. So when we think about the revenue that's coming in, the expenditures going out, sort of where does that leave us when we think about the overall forecast? We continue to look at this ending cash balance number, and we use that cash balance number, did extensive work in finance committee, partnered with our union to do this work, our union leadership, and we are targeting $5 million as our cash balance benchmark. And so we're always paying attention to where are we in terms of that $5 million benchmark. When you take our beginning cash, add in revenue, back out expenditures, where does that leave us in terms of that $5 million, which is the bottom number on this page? So on the revenue side, carefully watching the economic recovery and its impact on both state and local revenue. Property tax will be flatlined until we have another operating levy. State will, for all intents and purposes, be flatlined unless the state does something completely unpredictable. Local revenue, income tax is the trigger for us. So again, carefully watching how the economy rebounds and how that impacts our income tax collection. We did receive just shy of $900,000 in federal COVID relief money this year, and that has helped our general fund because we did shift some expenditures. Student devices, expanded Wi-Fi, lots of COVID supplies, including the students' favorite, those barriers, cleaning supplies. And then we're kicking off, actually have already kicked off some K-6 intervention, and that will continue through the summer. We also have additional over $1 million in additional COVID relief expected to come. That hasn't hit yet, but that's coming with a life over the next 3 years. Portions of that are very restricted and for learning loss. And so much more so than any of the first few buckets, this next round is very targeted towards very specific things. So that one is not in play yet. So when we look at our cash balance, we're projecting to end fiscal year 21 with about $7 million. If every number on this page were true, we did fiscal year 22, just over 6 million. But it's the trend that we're watching. The cash balance number is going down. So as these numbers fluctuate, we'll be carefully watching our levy planning against that $5 million number. So as it sits now, we would be looking at running something perhaps in 22 for collection in 2023, because that's when we would be dipping below our $5 million cash balance number. So, the past 2 years, we've sort of inched out a little more. And so that window is getting a little tighter. Questions from the board? Tim, anything that you'd like to add in?
No, I think we've done a great job with this. No, thank you. This connected to the CAC discussion is super helpful today at the same on the same night.
I had one question, Rhonda. When you mentioned the impact of COVID, I thought you said there was $410,000 that were taken away, and that was projected for 2 years. But I thought I understood in the second year we got a little bit back because so that would be a total of $600,000 that was lost. Is the million that's coming as COVID relief essentially covered that, even though it's targeted for specific elements overall to our budget? Or how do you think about what was taken and then what's been restored?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I hadn't thought about it that way. So if we think about our state funding comes to our school district in support of all of our kids, right? It just gets dumped into our general fund revenue, and then we use it in our general fund to support the needs of all of our kids, right? This is much more targeted. And while the first few buckets were, the allowance was much more flexible. We really could use it to support all things that we needed to do in terms of the pandemic. So for us, some of those things listed on this page, student devices, we knew that was really important. Expanded Wi-Fi and lots of COVID cleaning supplies. And then of course that summer intervention that has this, I'm going to call it the spring summer because it's already started and it's moving towards the summer. So what's coming next is very restricted. And so I would say maybe some of it you could say is a recapture of the loss, but it's never a true recapture of the loss unless it goes straight into your general fund and it can be used for all purposes. But we were able to buy some things that we desperately needed. So in some cases, it did allow us to sort of recoup and buy to keep us moving along in the land of COVID.
Yeah. Helpful.
Very good. Any other questions from the board?
No, thank you. It's just always very thorough and it's good to process it and look at it. And it's nice to see, just like we said, the hard work we talked about when you prepared us for how we want to look at a cash balance for these reasons, so that when you can look ahead to know I mean, we couldn't have foreseen that COVID was happening and those might dip a little bit more. So it's helpful for me to see it and how it might play out and how we can plan accordingly for it.
When does the bond come due?
So we're on a phase down. So interesting that if you think about a bond, so it's similar to your mortgage, but your mortgage, your principal and interest payments are consistent across your 30-year mortgage, right? The way that the bond payments work, they aren't quite consistent. So there's a phase down. So over the next few years, you'll see the bond millage start to dwindle off. And so by the time we get to 24, we'll see the bond millage go away.
Okay.
So when we think about future levy planning, one of the things that even we talked about in CAC was that very explicit communication that helped folks understand that we would be running, a property tax increase, but this other thing is coming off. And so it's the net of that would be the impact.
Right.
And just making sure that we explain that in the easiest possible way to understand.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Are there any other comments? I'm quite comfortable. Anyone else want to add in? Okay, then I think we will thank you. That's going to come up later as a vote.
Thank you.
We are now at the board committee reports. Is there a finance committee report?
Guess I'll keep rolling here. We met on May 3rd and we looked at, as we always do at every meeting, the salary and benefit analytic to make sure that, as we've talked a few different times tonight, 80% of our budget and salary and benefits. So we look at that every single meeting to see where we are compared to our original forecast. We also had received our final income tax payment of the fiscal year. We received that on the last day of April. So we took an opportunity at that meeting to look at the entire fiscal year collection of our income tax. And again, we looked at that in the five-year forecast presentation, just under 1% decline, which was better than forecast because we had been forecasting a 5% decline. And then also looked at it by category, withholding, payments with returns, and estimated payments. And then we also looked at what was then House Bill 110, which was the school funding budget bill. I feel like if you look at that on one day, it's completely shifted by the next day, but things haven't shifted for us. So, what we learned at that meeting was that 90% of school districts in Ohio in this new model get new money, and we do not. So again, we are not a winner in the new formula, and there's sort of been a shift in the way that they have to phase it in due to some appropriation limitations at the state level. And so we just built some understanding around that as well. I think that was it. I said that really fast, but it was a long meeting.
All right, thank you. And this House bill, you'll keep us informed because, as you say, it changes daily.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Citizens Advisory, I think, has made a presentation. Are there any announcements or anything you'd like to make?
I would. Thank you, Jeannie. Just number one, first of all, to say thank you again to the entire financial planning team. Obviously, great report, a ton of work that went into that, which in the end is going to help us better understand the connections that we need to be making in the community. So job well done to that crew. But really, thank you to, I use this meeting to say thank you to our entire CAC for the work that they've done on this project, the work that they've done on our school start time project. This information, again, is just critical to helping us understand some of the different topics that come up, and when we're at a point where we're potentially looking at making decisions, the research that's done within these teams is invaluable. And I just truly appreciate their dedication, their effort to it. So if it's okay, I'd like to just give them a quick shout out and mention the community members, teachers, resources that we have on this community or on the CAC. So thanks this year for our community members who are participants in this group. Sarah Green, Karen Klaus, Kristen Kneber, Sarah Coonan, Sarah McGuire, Shannon Myatt, Kathy McCauley, Cindy Peebles. Again, appreciate your commitment to this team and this work. Our teachers that were connected to the work, David Ambrose, Marta Stewart, Tyler Steins, We did have our study group resources, Rhonda Johnson, Dr. Ashley Whiteley, and then right here with us also, our Director of Communications, Susie Hankey. Thank you very much. And connected throughout all of this work, our board members, Ilya Thomas and Heather Yee. Thank you for the direction that you provide on a monthly basis to these groups. We are going to be meeting again here in a few weeks. We have a June meeting. We're going to be going back to these studies, helping to understand the potential impact that they'll both have on the district. And then we're going to continue thinking about what future studies might be for the CAC. So the work never ends. It's just this continuing cycle, and it's always very, very helpful. So again, great job to our CAC members.
When will you be doing the changeover with new members?
I think what we'll do is at that June meeting, we'll talk about that process, and it'll be soon after that. And that would be with community members and with staff members, yes.
All right, thank you. Superintendent committee reports. I'm going to skip business advisory. Does anyone have anything for community engagement?
I did, just for Wyoming School Foundation. Tim and I were able to join that meeting earlier this week. They were celebrating the year, which has been very successful financially and importantly in ways that I think many of us should, evaluating how they've had to pivot to do effective and impactful things differently during the quarantine, and then looking forward to say, how might we keep some of the things that we've learned and had to do differently as we consider what next year looks like when we could go back to what we've always done. And so that group is really looking at how do you incorporate or combine things like what the fun run was with the poker, kind of situation as we think about what we do next year, but also looking at the time of the year and when the events are happening and all of that. So just maximize and optimize what's happening next year. But I thought it was really helpful and healthy question around how do we think about what we learned or had to do differently and how it serves what we're doing in the future. So that was very encouraging.
Good.
No,
go, Kara.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to go in Jeannie's place to the JWC end of year meeting. And that meeting was at the golf club, and they award scholarship recipients and make several financial awards to community organizations. It was really great to be a part of that meeting, just because I realized, even though we hear, a gift comes in from the JWC here and there, it really is, they have quite an impact on Wyoming City schools. They awarded grants at all 3 levels and have done so throughout the year, as well as recognizing and awarding scholarships to 2 high school students. This is a group that is thriving. They went through a period where their membership was down, and I think membership is back up, and they're looking at doing some rebranding of the JWC and really working a lot on being more inclusive and, obviously a continued priority over understanding the needs of Wyoming and very specifically focused as well on the schools. So very appreciated of JWC.
Great, thank you. The Wyoming Art Show had its virtual art show last week, and the high school seniors from our high school art department were in a competitive show, and the art show gave close to $1,000 to the seniors from our high school. So,
wonderful. It was fun that you all had it that they put it online too, just so you can scroll through, and if you couldn't be there.
That was the school art was there too. They chose representations of what each grade level had done, and that was cool to watch how that happened. Yeah, that was very cool.
Go ahead. Refinish.
Go ahead. Next.
Just wanted to do for PSA. I know we had that on there, and this isn't. It's kind of the same as you all were saying with the year, thanks to them of how much they've supported the teachers and donations that they've organized, but that also with having to cancel Mayfade on the 14th, that they worked hard to get Strickers Grove for June the 5th. And so they've sent that out for people to be able to purchase tickets. Is it Strickers Grove? Do I say that correctly? Okay, thanks. I think I've mispronounced it in my house anyway. That sounds fun, and that's June the 5th. And that also they came through today with our family always loved the Wheel-a-thon, and knowing that had to get pushed out for 2 years, that they're really trying to get a combination day of Wheel-a-thon and walk and talk, so you can connect the older students and adults to also do the Wheel-a-thon that they're trying to move down to the village. And it looked like, I mean, they needed the volunteers by Friday, and it came out today, and I saw it and it was almost filled up, I feel like, already. So it could very well be filled up and might be happening. I don't know. I'll look at that later. So that was great. And you might be talking about this probably already, Tim and Susie, but for me, that community engagement ties into what you all did to have that school vaccination day. Like the amount of work that Susie put into that. But for me, it was like my first community day, I feel like, in person, to see so many people show up. But I told Susie, even the numbers are still amazing, by the way, but in my heart, I felt like I saw 3,000 people that day. And she says a few hundred, which is still amazing. But the sense of community that day, and for people to get to see the new Champion Center, I think was really cool, as well as getting vaccinated. So I just wanted to say thank you for all those efforts. And it was a school community event, was pretty awesome. So I felt very privileged to get to be there that day.
In future years, the legend will grow that it was thousands. It was
Thousands.
hundreds of thousands.
Absolutely.
It felt like it, didn't it? By the end of the day, no way.
Did.
With the 2-hour wait, anyway, just the amount that you all put into making that happen, and then being able to pivot to include so many younger people at the last minute. I mean, we all know that there were a lot of us who got into that last minute. So that was a very neat, like, community day, I think.
When is the second shot?
June 3rd.
Yeah. Coming up next
June
week.
3rd coming up. So I would imagine, Susie, anyway, can let us know more about that, but I would just think we'd be helping out with that.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to go on to Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Committee. Is there anything you'd like to report?
Carrie, you want me to share our update?
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, go ahead. Okay. So yes, we did meet. We met on May 10th. And what we were really doing is we were planning for that final belonging and inclusion collaborative conversation that we would be having. And again, the work of this team, the work of the belonging and inclusion collaborative is all geared toward belonging and making sure that we're building a climate and culture of true belonging for all students, all families, all staff members. And so in that conversation within our committee, and then ultimately with the BIC committee, we spoke about two different pieces. One was the possibility of restructuring the way that our belonging and inclusion collaborative works to mirror the great work that the CAC does. The beauty of the Citizens Advisory Committee is that we branch off into smaller teams, and we're able to put great effort across many areas. And so we thought that model would be a good one for our BIC committee, because we've set some targets. We've talked about recruitment, hiring, and retention practices in our district. We talked about course demographics. We talked about studying discipline and what does our discipline data show about the way we work with students. We talked about having these regular 1 degree shift conversations, all geared toward belonging. We've talked about being more intentional about focusing on unconscious bias and finding ways to increase student voice. So knowing that we're trying to do great work in all of those areas, we felt like restructuring the BIC committee would be advantageous for us to do. So that was one of the pieces we spoke about. And then ultimately in the BIC conversation, we did make a plan for doing that. And then the other piece that we spoke about was the opportunity that having an equity coordinator in the district might allow for us. And it's really just to be a coach for our Belonging and Inclusion Collaborative, and to help facilitate some of these conversations and to grow the capacity of our entire district as we work toward belonging. And what's great is the Hamilton County Educational Service Center does now offer this. And so we're connecting with the Educational Service Center for this resource next year. So we're planning what that will look like and how we can most effectively build belonging.
right, thank you.
Mhm.
Facility committee, we have nothing, correct? And
Oh, we've got stuff.
oh, then
Lots
go.
of stuff. Lots of stuff.
Right.
Well, you all can talk. I don't have to talk. I want to show this amazing spreadsheet of stuff that we have. We just met this past week. I find it fascinating. They've collected so much great information about putting all of our work in one place. I think the team had not inherited documents perhaps of what our facilities need for permanent improvements, maybe when, that it was more reactive versus proactive. Am I speaking correctly, Rhonda, Tim, Susie? Okay,
Yep.
so to look through, like we have a meeting and then we have an upcoming facilities walkthrough coming up here in June 8th. No, I don't know. It's on my calendar. 11. So I just find it so helpful to look at the summaries of each school, the different buildings, what's projected to be needed soon, what's not, and why, and how you can prioritize that, because of course the needs of our building often are more than our funds. So what does that look like, and how do you choose it? Maybe.
I'm looking forward to being able to go on the tour with Jan and Rhonda and Tim and see every facet of every building in our district. One of the things I'm also thankful about, I think Rhonda talked about the 5-year plan, the intentionality built into what are the needs, including the building leadership teams sharing what they're seeing, living in the building, the principals inputting those things, but then being able to see how those needs are being prioritized over the course of the next number of years with some intentionality, I think creates a sense that there's a hearing and an understanding and choice making required to manage the funds well that we have available, given some of the things that Rhonda talked about earlier. And so that's one of the things I was most excited about and thankful for. I'm not surprised, as we know what Rhonda has been doing in Jan and leading our intentional planning, relative to use of finances. But I think it can be something to help people know how intentional we are in managing those resources well, including things that were planned to be needed well past any of us being here. So the thought of kind of looking far out into the future to really serve the district for many years to come. It's pretty neat.
All right, thank you. Planning and goal setting.
I would just share we have one highlight, and that will be coming at our June 8th board planning meeting. We do have our building leadership teams are each going to be coming to the meeting to share the great work that happened this year. We're trying to make this a routine conversation each year at the end of the year, where we capitalize on the work that we set out to do within our goal work, and then what accomplishments have we made throughout the year. This has been a little bit different year. And as you know, we set goals up last year. We went into a pandemic that changed everything. But I think you'll be surprised at the great things that we were able to accomplish all along the way during the course of the year. And I'm excited for each one of our building leadership teams to share. And that'll happen again on June 8th as we meet at 7:30. And that'll be a great opportunity for our board to ask questions about some of the great things that have happened in those buildings. And we'll get a snap or a sneak peek at some of the work that we've got set up for next year.
All right, thank you. Policy review, I'll skip that. There is a policy we're looking at a little bit later in the meeting. And student achievement, I believe you've had a DLT meeting or not?
We did. Do you want me to capture that, Heather? Do you want to?
Oh, sure. Sure.
We did. We recently met, again, capping off the end of a year. And so we were looking at our goals for the 21-22 school year. And again, we're very excited to be moving to a better place and to be focused on this whole idea of continuous improvement and how we can be better in the classroom, better throughout our work in the district. We also spoke about the plans for our building leadership retreat on the June 8th board meeting that I just shared with you. And we're also looking at a software monitoring tool. And so how can we be the best stewards of the technology that we're utilizing with students? And so we're looking at resources to help in terms of technology integration And then the final piece we spoke about was our principal search update, and we shared where we were with the high school principal search and the primary principal search, which will have an update later on in my report.
All right, thank you. In that case, we're going to go on to the Board of Education report, and we're having the first read of policy 2431 on interscholastic athletics. Does this go to Jan or?
Well, I have a brief update on the policy. There's a minor change to the policy. This policy speaks to the importance that athletics plays in in the lives of many of our students. It's the whole idea of student engagement, and many times that is one of the great ways that students are engaged in their schooling experience. And so specifically, the change in the policy is a change in the eligibility that we've utilized in the past. That's the minor change that comes with that policy, but that's the essence of the policy and the language around it.
Is there a specific line, or because nothing was highlighted in our copy?
It's tiny, Jeannie. It's like a 1.8 grade point average down to a 1.6 grade point average.
Right.
It's really just that number, isn't it, that was highlighted?
Yeah. And that's it, just that a part of eligibility. Okay, cool, right. All right, and then next thing in the, oh wait, Board of Education report, that's you. Sorry, Tim, you do this.
Yes. So next item here, the Ohio High School Athletic Association membership. This is an annual membership that we have with the OHSAA, and it just allows us to continue to be a partner in the organization and allow our students to participate in all of their events.
All right. So may I have a motion to approve the Board of Education report? I think I got a motion and a second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. G?
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller?
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Meese?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We are ready for the treasurer's report.
Thanks, Jeannie. Item A, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on April 19th and the planning meeting on May 11th. Item B, approve the statement of revenues and expenditures for month ending April 30th. Item C, approval of the appropriation adjustments per attached. Item D, accept with appreciation the list of donations. Item E, extension of the lease agreement with Only Libraries. They rent a space in the back of the board office. And item F, approval of the 5-year forecast. Item G is approval of the report, please.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Any questions, comments? Thank you to those people who have made donations. May I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
All right, may I have a second? Heather seconds. All right, thank you. May I have a roll call?
Mrs. G?
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller?
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Meese?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The superintendent's report.
Okay, we've got a large report today, several personnel items, but I'm excited to walk through these. The first one is a recommendation to approve an administrative contract. And so I'll back up a little bit and remind everyone of the great work that we've been doing focused on our principal searches. And we recently have approved our high school principal, and I'm excited to be at a point where we're ready to recommend our Wyoming primary schools principal. And so you're going to see someone pop on the screen, and we're going to have her speak here in a little bit, but we're going to let her just hear a little bit about herself and the process that she knows better than anyone else. I'll tell you that. And hi, Gina. Okay, so as I back up a little bit to walk through this process, the primary schools process mirrored the high school process in that we sent out survey information to our staff members, to our families, to our community members We had focus groups, all geared toward identifying what were the things that we do well in our primary schools, where were there opportunities for growth, and what are the characteristics that we're looking for in our next leader of the primary schools. Great conversations to align ourselves so that we are laser focused on the things that we're looking for in our next leader. And as I've shared with all of our focus group conversations, it's equally about making sure that the expectations that we have fit with our candidate that's coming in. And when those are a great fit, it's this perfect match, and you can do wonderful things year after year as we continue to grow together. And so that was the focus of the process, and we've certainly been successful in that process, I think. And so before I formally make a recommendation, I just want to share some of the thoughts that came from our committee in terms of what they heard most, the resounding thoughts that came from their conversations with Mrs. Kirshner. And so here are some of the takeaways: incredible academic background and practical applications, wealth of knowledge, resources, intervention programs, and instruction, and how do we work with students best, a whole child focus, restorative practices for students and adults, a love or desire to make personal connections with every student. We work with kids, the whole idea of partnership, a belief in bringing people along and sharing the why, a great communicator, focused, clear, and precise, and this whole idea of love of children. And the list goes on for multiple pages. I pulled a couple out that I would want to share with you here tonight, but great feedback. And so I am very excited to recommend and for your approval, Mrs. Gina Kirshner for the role of our Wyoming Primary Schools principal for the upcoming, for today. A little bit more, Gina's got an extensive teaching background as she's worked at the East End Community School, Lakota Schools. She actually was a Wyoming City Schools teacher as she taught 4th grade at Elm. So I say you're coming back home to Gina. She's got experience at Xavier as an adjunct professor in the areas of literacy and curriculum and instruction. Most recently, Gina was an assistant principal at a K-1 early childhood school in Lakota. And then she's completing her role as the assistant director of curriculum and instruction for Lakota local schools. And, it stood out as we were talking, Gina's excitement for being in a building and being in a community that values education and values this partnership. And again, we think Gina's going to be an incredible fit for this role, and we're excited to see her coming back to Wyoming. So I'll go through the rest of our items. Gina, can you hold? It's been a long night. I know you've been holding for a while. That's okay. That's okay. We'll come back to you then if that's okay. And so I'll just go through the other 22 items on here, and we'll be right back. I promise. Okay. So item number 2 is a recommendation to approve transition days for Mrs. Kirshner. And again, that's about making a great transition. So we're ready to go when kids come in on day 1. Number 3, the renewal of administrator contracts. And we want to thank those individuals for doing the great work that they do with students, with staff members, with our families and our community. And so it's renewing their contracts. Number 4 is a renewal of a certified limited contract. And this is for our district nurse, who, as we know, has been incredibly valuable, always is, but the work that's happened this year has been like none other. Number 5 is a recommendation for a personnel change, and Mrs. Schreiner will actually be filling in a part-time ELL need working with students, and her intervention specialist position will be posted. Number 6 is a recommendation to approve a van driver for up to 15 hours to support students. Number 7, recommendation for extended school year services, and this is for helping students, assisting students who need these services as it's been identified in their individual plans. Number 8 is a recommendation to approve summer library collection audit and curriculum work and writing, and this is about continuing to develop our library and media curriculum, and that's the team that would be doing that. Number 9 is a recommendation for summer athletic camps and coaches. and you can see the list on the agenda. Number 10 is a recommendation to approve new course curriculum writing. And this would be work that would be done to develop the AP Spanish literacy curriculum. Number 11 is a recommendation to approve summer intervention camp. And you can see individual staff members that will be working in some capacity at camp. Number 12 is a recommendation to approve K-8 creation of summer extension calendars. This is a great support for families, really helps to keep kids engaged during the summertime. And again, that's kindergarten through 8th grade. Number 13, recommendation to approve AP testing workday for, you can see for Ms. Button. Number 14, recommendation to approve home instruction for students that are in need of home instruction services. Number 15, recommendation to approve school year extra class. These individuals will be teaching an extra bell during the course of the school year next year. And again, it's all about student needs and making sure that we're addressing the student needs that we have throughout the district. Number 16 is a recommendation to approve RESA alignment work, and Mrs. Christner would be doing this work, and what she's doing is aligning our program to the state model, and we'll be actually building a Canvas course for our newer teachers to engage with, and it's about onboarding, transitioning them into their work here in Wyoming. Number 17 is a recommendation to approve professional development work, and that would be for a day of collaboration, all focused on student needs. Number 18 is a recommendation to approve athletic supplemental contracts. 19, recommendation to approve high school band camp summer practice counselors. So we're excited about the opportunities that our students will have in band camp. And number 20 is a recommendation to approve summer string success coordinators, and this is connected to another opportunity for supporting students in strings. And number 21, high school band camp nursing services, and that is to, again, to help protect our students during the band camp timeframe. Number 22, additional auditorium manager hours. The recommendation is to increase these hours to support these end of the year activities that are currently happening right now. And then you probably noticed we do have an additional item that was added to the agenda, another personal item, number 23, and that is to recommend a new high school social studies teacher, Joseph Holthouse. So we're excited about him and his addition to the high school team. Again, talking about fit, a great fit for the high school instructional team. So on to a different topic, item B now. We have a recommendation to approve different summer programs, courses, or camp proposals. And so you can see the list is continuing to grow. And what that means is we've got more and more opportunities for our students, which is great to see. Again, all of these individuals have made sure that we're thinking about the current climate with regard to COVID and how to best function in a safe way for our students. Item C is a recommendation to approve our Hamilton County ESC annual order. And this is an annual contract that we do every year, and it is for services that we procure from the county. Some of these annual items include preschool itinerant services, assistive technology, school psychologist, speech services. I spoke earlier about the equity coordinator that we were going to be connecting with for the next school year. It's part of this order. Item D, Hamilton County ESC Early Childhood Special Education Center-based programming services. And again, this is an annual contract for services with the county for our special education preschool students that are served at Indian Hill. And then item E, our Hamilton Claremont Cooperative HCC, our annual contract. Again, another annual contract with HCC for student services such as EMIS and Progress Book, which we rely greatly on. And let's see, item F is a recommendation to approve administrative compensation for the 21 and the 21-22 and the 22-23 school year. That's all I have.
Really was 22 more. I forgot. We thought we were being facetious, and I'm like, oh no, it really is.
Yes. Any questions?
No.
No, you just spent a whole lot of money right there. I started to add it up earlier and I thought, no, I think it's
Well,
high.
it's all part of the great financial planning that happens within our district. And I'll go right back to the CAC report. That's all part of that great work that was shared.
Rhonda already counted it, Jeannie.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. All right. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the superintendent's report?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? I'll second. Let's go on to the roll call, please.
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Meese,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. G.
Yes.
All right. Thank
Welcome,
you.
Gina.
Welcome to Wyoming City Schools, Gina.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I am so incredibly excited to have this opportunity. You've just approved my dream job. So I'm so incredibly grateful. After teaching in Wyoming for 4 years, I know firsthand that I could not have found a better place to land. And I'm just absolutely humbled and excited to come back as the leader of the primary. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
We're thrilled to have you.
Yay.
All right. Yep. Welcome, Gina. Very excited for you to connect with our families, with our staff, and with our kids. Cannot wait.
Can't wait. Thank you
back.
so much.
Good. Well, thank you. All right. Superintendent's report. Another item.
Yes, we have another exciting item, and that is, again, for a renewal of an administrator contract. And you can see Cincy Meese, we're recommending her renewal and saying thank you for the great work that she does in supporting kids and what their future plans are in life. And so a powerful connection and opportunity that we have for kids.
All right. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second. And now may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Meese,
I abstain.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. G,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Superintendent's update.
Okay, I promise not to be too long, but it's the end of the school year. We've got just 4 days to go, and there's so many great things happening. I could not get away without sharing just a little bit of excitement. It's a lot of fun this week. The last 2 weeks actually have been really great to see students doing different things as they've capitalized on their year. And I feel like people are in a good place. And it's great to be ending where we are with so much enthusiasm and excitement for next year already. High school, our high school are having outdoor events. Our seniors are actually going to be headed to the zoo together. Great connector activity. I'll talk a little bit more about graduation. Middle school have been taking trips. Our 7th grade kiddos went to the rec center today. They're probably sleeping well right now. I can say that as I saw them get off the bus. Our 8th grade students went to the Reds game, but I know there's many activities, and we've got an 8th grade celebration coming up here soon. Primary students are gearing up for a great outdoor field day experience. And that sounds small, but it's big. It's so big because we've missed that. And so we're excited to be back and doing those things. Just a great way to end the year. So very excited about the momentum that we have. We spoke a little bit earlier about wanting to connect with families one more time before the summer came. And so that's where all of our families should have received the annual survey. And again, we'll do that the last week of school every year. It helps us to identify those things that we're doing well, what things can we work on, and we look for alignment from our primary schools to middle school to the high school. And that will be a great tool for our new principals coming in as we build alignment. We think about the experiences that our students are having and that our families are having. So the deadline for that survey is June 4th. We'll probably send out a reminder. We want to make sure everyone can connect with that tool to share, again, their experience. We do have our high school graduation coming up. The 2021 graduation commencement ceremonies are scheduled for this Saturday, May 29th, 4 p.m. on Graduation Walkway. Yes, I know Mrs. Broderick's very excited. Yes, yes. And we're excited. We're all excited for our students. And so that's coming up. I will say we do have limited seating for families. We're still working through the guidance that we have for graduation ceremonies. And because of that, we will be live streaming the commencement through our YouTube account. And so wanted to make sure that families were aware of that. But again, that's right around the corner. And we are excited to celebrate all of our seniors on, gosh, the great experience they've had throughout their time here in Wyoming, but especially the model that they provided over the past 12 months has been exceptional. So they're special in many ways, and that's certainly one of them. And then the last item that I have is just a congratulations to our entire school community. After a very difficult, challenging, I say uplifting year because of the great successes that we've had, big and small. And I think I just want people to know the sincere appreciation that I have, that our entire school community has for one another. We've gotten a lot done this year. We've actually accomplished many, many things. I was just thinking about this earlier today. I wrote down a few that stood out. The whole idea of navigating a pandemic with great success is a big deal. And I think we've done a great job, but it's not any one population of individuals that made that happen. It's our staff, it's our families, it's our entire community, our city. I think more than anybody, it's our students who have pulled together, from our youngest ones to our seniors that we're going to be celebrating on Saturday. But we've managed to minimize risk. We've created a science advisory team that helped to navigate the way throughout this whole ordeal. We partnered together like we've never partnered before. And we're currently shifting and taking advantage of new guidance to celebrate, as I'm sharing, our students in the best ways that we can. During the course of the year, we've talked about 2 facilities that we've built and opened: our Center for Research and Innovation, Dan Jones Center for Research and Innovation, our Champion Center, phenomenal facilities that provide these environments that students just don't have in other high schools. And so we're celebrating that. We're celebrating the great process that we've utilized to bring in new administrators to the district and to be leaders and to connect and provide unity and alignment in our school district. And we've actually had a great deal of success when we think about teaching and learning in our classrooms and about climate and culture and working toward belonging. And that is the effort, the daily, multiple times per day effort that our staff members are making, whether you're a teacher in the classroom, an educational aide, you're working in a front office, or you're managing the facilities and maintenance to make it a great place for learning for kids. The accomplishments are endless. Sometimes you don't always see them. But I get this bird's eye view to be able to see the great things that happen on a day-to-day basis, and I couldn't be more proud of Wyoming. So pretty cool. That's all I have.
Well, thank all of you on the screen too for leading it through that, because I think it's easy for you to then give kudos to everyone else, but you all worked very hard as well, and we appreciate it. It's not an easy year. It was bumpy at times, but you can see the, insightful is what I say. It was good to really work through stuff as a team, and we appreciate the leadership each of you brought. Well, I appreciate it. I won't speak for others.
No, speak for all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree. Thanks, Fran.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. Does anyone have anything else? All right, then in that case, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or not.
Second.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Meese,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Yee,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.